Hi, thanks for stopping by. My name is Wan Yi, and I'll walk you through our poster, Prevalence Effects in Two Feature Dimensions. I'll start by introducing the two opposite effects of low prevalence. They are modulated by the presence and absence of feedback. In our previous study, observers were asked to categorize items on a continuum from purple to blue. The prevalence of blue item dropped from 50% to 6%. In the absence of feedback, observer categorized more of the ambiguous color in the middle as blue. Their psychometric function shifts to the left, and this is known as the prevalence-induced concept change, or the peak effect. In contrast, with feedback, observer missed more blue items in the middle at low prevalence and adopted a conservative criteria. Their function shifts to the right. This is known as the classic low prevalence effect. So experiments using the simple blue-purple stimuli give meaningful conclusions, but then they fail to capture the full complexity of the real-world search stimuli, which are usually defined by more than one features, such as color, shape, size, blurriness. The prevalence of these features may even vary independently. So here we ask two questions. First, does the effect of prevalence operate on the individual feature? If we change prevalence over one of the two dimensions, will we see prevalence effects in both dimensions or only the changed one? Experiment 1 used a stimuli set that vary in shape, from round to pointy, which we called Buba and Kiki, and in color from green to yellow. Observers saw one stimulus at a time and were asked to judge whether or not it was a green Kiki. They received feedback in one condition and no feedback in the other. The prevalence of the target, green Kiki, decreased in 4 different ways. In the high prevalence block, we draw 50% of the stimuli from the target distribution and 17 from the other 3. We first change prevalence over both the shape and color dimension. The target dropped to 10%, while the other 3 increased to 30. The green heat map shows percentage of target responses averaged across observer for each condition. We then calculated the response difference between the two blocks. Red indicates a low prevalence effect shift, and blue indicates a peak shift. The difference map shows for both shape and color, there was a weak peak effect without feedback and a solid low prevalence effect with feedback. In the second condition, we changed the prevalence along the shape continuum. Can we see prevalence effects in color as well? Without feedback, we didn't observe any significant effect, although the difference map looked peakish. With feedback, low prevalence effect was strong in shape and weak in color. Similarly, when we changed the color prevalence in the third condition, there was no significant effect without feedback, and with feedback, low prevalence effect was again strong in shape and weak in color. Surprisingly, when the prevalence was reversed such that the majority of the stimuli were yellow Buba, there was a strong peak effect in both shape and color, and only a weak low prevalence effect overall. Thus, when prevalence was reduced for one dimension, effects were seen on the other dimension. Feedback tends to produce low prevalence effect, no feedback tends to produce peak. It is not clear why low prevalence effect predominates in some experimental conditions and peak the other. The second question we asked was, do prevalence effects spread between stimuli that share common feature? In this experiment, we used 2 sets of Buba-Kiki stimuli. They are identical except for the color, one in homogeneous yellow and one in green. Observer made 3 AFC yellow Kiki, green Kiki, and neither decision. The prevalence of the green Kiki goes down, green Buba goes up, while the prevalence of the yellow shape stayed unchanged in the low prevalence block. Thus, a change in the green prevalence changed the categorization of the yellow shape. If we look at the result to the green Kiki response on the left, with feedback, there was a strong low prevalence effect. Without feedback, the effect also skewed towards the low prevalence effect direction, which is different from our previous finding. When we look at the result to the yellow Kiki response on the right, there was a weak low prevalence effect with feedback, even when the prevalence of the yellow stimuli were unchanged, and no effect without feedback. Therefore, the effect on yellow stimuli is present, but smaller than the effect on green when green prevalence changes. There is a no feedback difference. And third, these effects are skewed towards low prevalence effect. We're still in the process of understanding why. To sum up, feedback modulates prevalence effects. Decisions with feedback are more conservative than without feedback. Changes in prevalence in one dimension can affect an orthogonal dimension, although the results are not entirely clear. This is part of our long-term goal to control prevalence effects because they are robust sources of errors in socially important tasks. Thank you for listening, and please contact us if you have any questions.